Welcome to Formed, where each week we navigate a relevant topic or question through honest conversations. We are three pastors with three different backgrounds on staff together at Irving Bible Church in Irving, Texas. We believe we are constantly being formed in the way of Jesus for the sake of the world, and we hope this podcast helps with that. So let's jump into this week's episode of Formed. Welcome back to another week of Formed, and we're here.
Here we are.
We're back.
Guys, this is Sissy's last podcast for 3 months. I didn't want to pause
3
right
months.
there. On the
3
last
months.
podcast.
3
Yeah.
months.
Sissy gets to go on sabbatical.
I do. So excited. Yeah.
Why are you going to miss us the most?
I'll have to answer that when I get back.
To see if she actually
Yeah,
did miss
yeah.
us or not.
If that is a reality, I'll let you know.
Man, I tell you what. I know at this point I'm going to miss you. That just kind of hurts my
I am
feelings.
going to miss you guys. I am going to miss you guys. I just don't know how much. Yeah.
She's smiling.
I
over
will
there.
think of you.
She planned it to take sabbatical over Easter peep season, and
Now I could eat all the peeps I
the
want.
peeps
Like
you
Lent
want.
is kind of on, right?
but no, the show will go on for the next 3 months. I think we're gonna go down a little bit to like twice a month instead of 4 a month, and we're gonna have different
Get
guests.
some guests on the green sofa.
Yeah. We're
Yeah.
gonna have some fun and have some guests in, and then before you know it, Sissy's gonna be right back.
Yeah.
So.
You're going to have some great guests, and I'm going to miss it. So
Sabbatical really is one of those things that's a gift to us as pastors that our church leadership has made this policy for every 7 years. A pastor gets a 3-month sabbatical. And so I had mine a couple of years ago, and the podcast managed to
Yeah.
keep going
Yeah.
even in my absence. And so we'll do that with Sissy. And we actually have a couple other pastors that joined the pastoral staff that same year. And so they're up for sabbatical this year as well.
Yeah.
But excited for you and for all that God has in store over the course of these next few months.
thank you. Me too.
At the very end of the podcast, we're going to kind of toss it to Sissy to just share about what her sabbatical is going to look like and what she's seeking and praying about and how we can pray for her during sabbatical. But let's look at ministry. And I think sometimes, especially people outside the church, sometimes ask or have this perception about what it looks like to work in vocational ministry, work at a church or in some other type of ministry setting for it to be a career. And maybe there's people listening to this and they're in seminary or undergrad, or they're thinking about not that, but they're still thinking about, man, I think I feel like the Lord's calling me into ministry type thing. So these next 25, 30 minutes, this is for you. So let's go backwards in time. Why did you want to go into vocational ministry? Or did you? And then
Yeah.
I think we have different stories in that regard.
Yeah, we do. You want me to start?
Go for it.
I was in corporate finance, and I had spent 15 years in corporate finance. I really loved my job, loved what I was doing, and I was leading a Bible study midweek. It started with a group of friends of just let's get together and study God's Word together, and then it sort of grew, and we were meeting in my parents' basement in their house in New Jersey, because it ended up being like 60 people, 70 women at one point, and it was just a lot of women who had walked away from the church, who felt they had been hurt by the church, walked away from their faith, and all of a sudden they're gathering, and I'm leading and I'm teaching, and I think I was a terrible teacher. It wasn't heretical, but it wasn't good. And so I recognized that. I knew that I was not equipped to teach. And so I decided to go to seminary, and that's a longer story, but ended up here at DTS, Dallas Theological Seminary. And even then, I wasn't really thinking I'm going into vocational ministry. I just knew this was a step of obedience that God wanted me to take. And so I did that. While I was in seminary, I really felt the Lord calling me into vocational ministry, that God had given me gifts, had wired me a certain way, had even the experiences that I've had, the background I had in corporate finance, that God was going to use that for the good of his church. And so started considering vocational ministry. I knew how Jesus had healed me, and I wanted to be part of that experience for other people, and walking alongside people in their journey of discipleship was something that I really found exhilarating. It's what I loved about that initial experience of teaching and leading a Bible study, that I got to be part of. I had this front row seat to see lives transformed by the gospel. And so that for me, I think was really where I felt called to vocational ministry.
Love it. So good. Yeah, my story goes back a little further. You know, I grew up in church, but it was really my freshman year of high school that I trusted in Christ and kind of had that moment of just really recognizing the gospel's personal implications for me. And so really that kind of began my growth as a Christian through those high school years. And I had a youth pastor that was very influential in my life at that time, really kind of mentored me and some of my friends. And so the summer after my senior year of high school, I was invited along with one of my other good friends. We had both been kind of student leaders in our youth group, and the two of us were invited to be summer interns. And so I had this internship. And right around that time, this buddy of mine, J.R. Vassar, who is the senior pastor at actually the church that this all took place in. It's now Church of the Cross, but at the time it was Memorial Baptist Church. And J.R. had made a decision, a commitment to pursue a life of ministry. And we grew up Baptist, so anything you do in that world, you walk down the aisle and, make public and tell the preacher. And so J.R. had done that. And then in this summer internship, one Sunday evening service, J.R. actually preached his very first sermon. And it was during that time that I just felt this sense of calling on my life. And, all of this stuff that God had been doing, this growth and this experience in ministry. And it was like, I think this is what God has for me. And so I made a commitment at that time as an 18-year-old that said, this is God's call in my life. I'm surrendering to a call to ministry. I remember talking to my parents about it, and they were very cautious, just out of that sense of like not wanting this kind of young 18-year-old, well-meaning, but is this, just in a kind of in a moment, and are you gonna regret this or feel like you can't pursue something? And yet I look back and there's just never been a sense that I've wavered from the idea that this is just what God had for me. This is God's call on my life. And I remember all kinds of, as a young man, wrestling with, well, God, what does that mean? And what kind of ministry is it going to be? Of course, 19, 20-year-old me couldn't have anticipated the very windy road that God would take me on. And yet I'm able to look back and go, that sense of calling was very real and has never wavered. And I couldn't have anticipated all the twists and turns, and yet I can also see the hand of God leading me all the way through. A mentor in high school that led me to make a commitment to ministry. A mentor in college that opened up for me this real desire to learn and go deeper in my faith. A mentor in seminary that really was this kind of brilliant professor, but also really pastored me well. And so that led me on a path to pursue academic ministry, to get a PhD, to teach in the seminary context, but then at the same time to open up the opportunity to be a teaching pastor here at IBC, and the chance to kind of do that Dr. Jones, Pastor Barry thing for a long time, and now to be here and in this role. It's I never could have anticipated all of the twists and turns. And yet I can just look back and go, gosh, I see God's hand leading me through that whole process all along the way, from an 18-year-old youth intern to sitting here doing what I get to do today.
I think what's so interesting about even just both our stories is I grew up in an Indian church, and I had never seen a woman go into vocational ministry. In fact, I'm the first woman in my family. I'm the first woman in my community to do something like that. So I didn't have a file for that. Like I never thought this was even something that was possible for me. It wasn't in the realm of possibilities. And so to me, as much as this was about how I could serve God and impact lives, it was also about what God was doing in me, because it meant I had to leave the comforts of my culture and my job and the things that it was a very comfortable, convenient life. And so I feel like God was doing something in me as well by saying, this is a step of trust that you need to take, and here's how I'm going to grow you in bringing you into vocational ministry.
I might answer a few of these here.
Yeah, please.
I'd love to hear.
So I was 16 and I was involved with FCA stuff and sports, and then I'll never forget, somebody asked me randomly to preach a little message thing at school, and in front of a couple hundred high schoolers. Never done anything like that, and then it kind of just went from there of just a young age. It was kind of like built around like a preaching, speaking thing of now this like high school kid is like doing like ministry stuff like that. And that's with through some mentors and stuff through then of giving me opportunities at such a young age and then affirming that. And then I was like, I don't really know about ministry stuff. My dad then was like, hey, why don't you do something more like stable, more,
Practical.
trying to push me
Yeah.
towards
Yeah.
something a little bit more financially stable too. And but I just felt this like, I feel like this is what the Lord was wanting me to do through all of that. And then I went to Liberty and went to DTS after that. And I think early on it says in a small town, ministry only looks like one or two ways. You're either like senior pastor or you're a youth pastor.
Yeah.
And even like a
And
pastor.
then there's like those weird missionaries out there.
Yeah.
That's pretty much
Yeah,
that's,
just-
that's about it. That's about
Yeah.
it.
And even like a pastor's wife, Barb, and I met in high school and was like, hey, I'm going into ministry. But it's like the pastor's wife only had it in a small town.
Yeah.
Pretty much this is the
This is what you
it's
do.
like-
Yeah.
But we talked from early on, like, hey, I don't want you to ever feel that pressure. Like you have to like fit into this box of
Yeah.
this role in this small town, like what a pastor's wife looks like. And so then, and then I never moved back to my small town.
Yeah.
And we've been in Dallas for 10 years. So it's been a lot of fun. And honestly, it's still, I was going to say the most rewarding thing in my life, but I want to stay there, rewarding. Let's do a twofold question here. Let's start with the most rewarding part of ministry, and then after this, we'll do the hardest part of ministry.
Yeah. I think the most rewarding part of ministry for me, whether that's in preaching or in a leadership role, is we get to be part of the transformative work of Christ in the lives of people. Like we're walking alongside them. You get that. You're so close. You see them in seasons of joy and seasons of struggle and seasons of doubt, and you get to be part of that experience. I don't know if there's anything more rewarding, satisfying than seeing someone come to know Christ in that way and being part of that in that way. So that for me is it.
Yeah, when it's seeing that light come on,
Yeah.
or seeing that life change, and sometimes it's interesting. Sometimes the rewarding and the hard
Are
actually
together.
really go
Yeah.
together,
Yes.
right? It's actually being with people
Yeah.
in the midst of their pain.
Yeah.
We'll make a pastoral visit this afternoon to a couple who's going through loss and grief right now, and but to be able to be present with people and to bring the hope of the gospel and just a sense of pastoral presence into people's grief and pain, it's a deeply rewarding experience. One of the things that really marked my life, you guys have heard me talk about before, I lost my dad about 25 years ago, and I read Henry Nouwen's little book, The Wounded Healer, while I was sitting at my dad's bedside, right? And the whole idea of that book is that God uses us as instruments of his healing grace in the lives of other people as we make our wounds available to them, right? The pain that we've experienced, the grief, the loss, that as we make that available to other people, that God uses that as part of his healing in their lives. Paul talks about, praise be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion, the God of all comforts, who comforts us in all of our afflictions, all of our troubles, so that we might comfort others with the comfort we ourselves have received from God. And so when you get the chance to experience that, there's something that's just profoundly meaningful. But also as a teacher, when you have that moment of like somebody, they get it, right? You see the penny drop.
Yeah.
I had a woman come to me after a class that I taught a number of years ago, and she just had tears in her eyes. She said, I'm 64 years old. Why has nobody told me this before? Right? It was just like this new, rich understanding. Somebody who's loved the Lord and followed Christ for a long time, but just a new, richer understanding that the gospel is even better news than we've been led to believe. Yeah. And boy, there's something that's just deeply meaningful, deeply rewarding about seeing that experience of like, I've come to see the truth, the beauty of the gospel in a new and deeper way than I ever had before.
Yeah.
That moment never gets old.
Yeah.
It's just it can be a camp, it can be a conference, or one-on-one, and just when everything clicks of that hope that Jesus offers, that I was like, and there's something bigger and kind of out of people's control of that. Especially, I feel like in today's world, there's so much control over everything we have, and when you get to see these moments in which it's this like freeing moment in a way of like these chains are broken. It's like this, that feeling right there. I wish I could just like put it in a jar and just like be able to pull it out of my back pocket whenever, there's the tough times and the hardest times. And ministry is not easy. What's the hardest part about ministry?
Yeah, for me, I think it's a little bit of what you alluded to earlier, that there is a weight, an emotional toll that ministry takes, that you are walking alongside people through some of the darkest times of their lives. Yeah. And that can be heavy and that can be challenging. You're carrying pain and grief along with them. And so there's an emotional toll, I think, that ministry takes that nobody could tell you about. Like, sometimes I think, I wish someone told me about this before, but I don't think I would understand it until you experience it. And, I was in a fairly senior role in corporate America, and there was a responsibility there, but it was nothing compared to the emotional weight that I think I carry as a pastor. And I had to experience that to really understand that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like with my role, there are kind of three main aspects, each of which have their own unique weight, right? One of those is the responsibility to open God's Word, not every Sunday for me, but more Sundays than not.
Yeah.
So just the work that it takes to be ready to bring a message that's hopefully fresh and insightful and inspiring. And so that takes work all on its own. And I've often joked of like, I could actually be a really good senior pastor if I didn't have to preach all the time, right? Like, because then there's sort of the leadership aspect, and that has to do with, with vision and leading staff and just the day in, day out oversight of the kind of organization, the size organization that we are. And there's a level of complexity that just comes with being the senior leader of an organization. So there's preaching every week, then there's the leadership aspect of things, and then there is the really pastoral care and being with people in their pain. And those are the things that are part of my job that other people don't necessarily see up front. And yet that still is a significant part. And for me, if I'm not doing that, I feel as though there's something missing to my having the title pastor. Like I need to be present with people. So I mentioned a pastoral visit this afternoon, or a couple that I'm walking with through just deep pain in their marriage, and having been present with pastored parents through suicide of their young adult kids. And I think it's those moments. There is, for ministry leaders, the reality of a kind of secondary trauma. You are oftentimes that spiritual and emotional first responder. You're stepping into people's experience of pain and loss and being present with them in it. And it's not that, right? It's not that you've experienced that pain, that loss, but you bear an emotional weight that comes with being present with people in that. And so trying to do that in the midst of then the rest of
other pieces.
the other pieces and how they fit together. And then there's just an aspect that comes with the reality of lost and broken relationships. That's something that I didn't necessarily anticipate would be as painful for me as it has at points along the way, whether it be staff members that move on, or whether it be church members that decide, you know what, I'm going to go find another church. And there have been some of those that have been, departures. I was thinking about a church family that, that left a few years ago, that we left on really good terms. We got coffee together. We talked about it. And it just seemed to be like, this is the right move to make. And yet still a lot of grief around, I've watched their kids grow up, and times that I have to make decisions as a leader, that lead people to say, it's time for me to go. Yeah. And, I bear the weight of that and the grief of that, of, sometimes I still have to make those hard decisions. And I'm mindful of the fact that that's a painful decision for somebody else to make, to say, we've been here for 20 years and it's time for us to move on. And yet, that's part of the...
It's hard on you as well.
Yeah, that's part of the weight that comes with the role.
I think you bring up a really good point in that, especially I think today. I mean, you brought up these different roles that you play as a pastor. That you're almost like a CEO, right? You're running this church, and you've got to have leadership skills and management skills, and that you've got to be a great communicator because almost every week you're opening up scripture. There's a counseling aspect, a pastoral care aspect that's there as well. That's important in pastoring. And then there's this other piece that I feel like is maybe more emphasized since post-COVID, but this idea of being a pundit, where you have to be culturally, socially aware, and almost an expert on everything. And to do all of those well every week is nearly impossible, right?
Yeah.
So there's just a
And there, there's an
weight.
aspect, and this is part of what I'm really excited for you, Sissy, with the sabbatical. There's an aspect of the work that we do where your spiritual life is also bound up with your right. Like I just have been with my friends that are part of my Wednesday morning breakfast crew, and we're checking in each other's, how you're doing spiritually. And yet, for those guys, the sense of their spiritual life, their spiritual well-being, isn't directly connected to their job and their job performance. And yet, for us as pastors, that's part of it. There's a sense in which your spiritual life is kind of for public consumption. And the beautiful thing about sabbatical is you actually just get to go experience the spiritual life, right? It's not your life with God for the sake of your ministry. It's your life with God for the sake of your life with God.
Yeah.
And that's what I really needed in my sabbatical a few years ago, is like I just needed a season where I could just be a follower of Jesus. I needed a season where I could where I knew, the way I've said it is, where I knew that my desire for God was because I truly desired God, and not merely I desired God for the sake of my ministry, for the sake of my professional advancement, right? For the sake of my career. No, I was like, I needed to know that I just needed God. I just wanted God. I just wanted to follow Jesus. Yeah,
good.
and I'm hopeful for that'll be part of the experience for you, is you just get to delight in being a daughter of God, that you get to delight in being a disciple of Jesus.
Yeah. Thanks.
I think that part that you're talking about in particular with like just the Bible as a book of, you go through, I found one of my hardest times to pick up my Bible was post graduating DTS. Because I went through, 4 years of undergrad of biblical studies as my major, and then go to seminary for 3 years. And then it's like you've done all this work with the Bible as a textbook. And then how do you, and it's like, in a way, it sounds like really sad, but I was like, it's kind of sick of it. It's just all the time. It's like, so how do we, that was one of the hardest things. And, and looking at the phases, different roles in ministries, ministry requires you, when I was, speaking a lot more, you're like in, you're in the Word every week, kind of have to do that. And so it's like from an education point, and then vocational ministry, you're like, it's part of your job. How do you navigate the picking it up for just personal your relationship with the Lord? And I also say that one of the hardest part of ministry is like the fixer role of, I have a lot of like non-believers in my life that, whether it's like friends back home, friends here in Dallas, that you get the call. It's an honor. You get the call when something happens, or they're stuck or something. But the amount of like situations that you're one of the first calls of like, what do I do? And like, oh man, I just feel like I need to talk to you. Like, what should I do right now? And there's that like pressure of like, you gotta get that right every time of the advice, or you got this like one shot at representing fair or not fair. Like you feel like you have this one shot at representing like Christianity,
right.
Or don't screw it up.
Like,
Don't mess this one up.
So I think that it's an honor, and it's something I always want to be those phone calls. But it's also, you hit end and you're like, did I just really jack that up? So, okay. What's a misconception about in vocational ministry?
I think for me, what I have seen as a misconception is, especially for me, I have friends, knowing that I went from corporate to vocational ministry, they'll often say things like, man, you're so lucky that you get to do that full time. Like, that must be so, like, you have such a joyful ministry career, which is true. I love what I do. It's certainly significant and uplifting. And purposeful and full of meaning, and yet there are really hard times.
Yeah.
You talked about
Yeah.
the pain that's involved often with losing friendships and hurting people. That's so unintended, and yet is a reality with decisions that you make. And so there's emotional challenges, there's spiritual challenges in navigating your own spiritual life, and what does that mean for your ministry? And I think people don't fully appreciate that it's not all, we're not holding hands and singing Kumbaya together every day, right?
Yeah.
But that there are hard things
Yeah.
as much as it's, I love what I get to do, and I'm so grateful I get to do it.
Or even the concept of it, like being air quotes here for non-YouTube, easy.
Yeah. Yeah. You only work on Sunday.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like, oh, buddy.
Yeah. Right.
I've never worked this hard in my life.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right. Of like, people I think see the public part of it.
Yeah.
And I think can underestimate the amount of work that it takes to do that well, all by itself.
Yeah.
But then there are the other aspects of it that people, don't necessarily see as visibly, and so don't realize the long hours, the toll that it takes. Of, you and I have been through plenty of Sunday into Monday where you come off of preaching and just exhausted, and then turn around and we have a Monday that starts with an all staff. I'll lead the all staff Monday morning and lead pastoral staff in the afternoon, and then we have elders meeting that night, and it's a long 13-hour day, and then turn around and we're right back at it the next day. And so it is a demanding job, a demanding role. It's deeply fulfilling, right? It's, for me, it's profoundly meaningful. But I think there can be a misconception of it's just you're kind of hanging out with people, and and it's like, okay,
church is fun. I like being at church. You get to do that all the time.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so what advice do you have for someone that's thinking about going to ministry? They're thinking the Lord's calling them into ministry at any age. What advice would you throw out there? You can only say one thing, because I'm sure you
one
have
thing.
a million things.
Okay, I got my one thing. Are you ready for it?
Go for it.
I got a Willard quote.
Oh, it's made my
I got to
day.
go out on a good note with Dr. Jones, so I got a Willard quote. So one of my favorite quotes from Willard that has been deeply meaningful and impactful to me.
I know what she's going to say.
You do. I think you do. The main thing God gets out of your life is not the achievements you accomplish, but the person you're becoming. And for me, that has been so good to try to consistently keep the forefront of my mind, that I can easily make the main thing God gets out of my life is the best sermon I preach, or how I'm leading, or how successful the ministries are that I oversee. And that is absolutely not true. The main thing that God gets out of my life, the thing that he's most interested in, is the person I'm becoming.
Yeah.
And it gets a little bit back to like my spiritual life. I can only offer people what I am already receiving from God. It's out of my being with Jesus that I can do for Jesus. And I think sometimes I can personally get that twisted, and I think that's easy to do. So that's my advice.
I think that's, I mean, what am I going to improve on Dallas Willard? I mean, come on. I think that's great. Yeah. It's really exploring your own life with God and leading then
from that place,
responding out of that place.
Yeah.
It's good.
Look, I've never seen Barry give a shorter answer to anything. On that.
Well, he's Mr. Miyagi. I'm Danielson, and the teacher's pleased. Yeah.
Well, okay. Banter.
Haha.
Let's talk some banter here at the end of the podcast.
Let's do it.
Before we ask Sissy about her sabbatical, so we've referenced that it's a 3-month long sabbatical.
Yeah.
So let's just answer this question: if you could live anywhere in the world for 3 months, money is not an issue, and you can have anybody you want to be there for any set amount of time. Like maybe you're like, I'd like that person to be there for like a month, but not all 3. So those caveats, where would you pick?
Okay, I might be cheating a little bit.
If you say Jersey.
No, I'm not going to say Jersey. Even I'm not going to say Jersey. I was going to say, so the first thought that came to my mind, maybe it's a little bit because this is a part of what I'm going to do over sabbatical, is I would say Europe. Specifically, I would say London. Because
I was going to say,
not all of Europe.
Europe.
Yeah, London. But what I love about it is you can easily get to, so I want the beaches, or I can do a quick flight over to Italy. I want to go to Paris. It's a train ride. Like you could just, I want to go to Ireland. Like it's all right there. Like we in the United States don't fully appreciate how much history and how easily accessible Europe is if you're right in the center of it. So that's what I would say.
It's really great.
Okay.
Hit a lot of places.
Beat that, Barry.
Yeah, I think I'd want to get into the mountains somewhere. So I'm just imagining a little cabin. I don't know if it's Colorado, Oklahoma, not Oklahoma, not
Broken
Oklahoma,
bow for
not
3 months.
Oklahoma.
Mountains in
Whenever I
Oklahoma.
talk about a cabin, I have my
think.
stories of the cabin in Oklahoma. No, Colorado or New Mexico. Probably New Mexico just because of the food, so I can get access
that is good
to the food that I love. I mean, I just love New Mexican cuisine. That's part of my deep love for Santa Fe. Really, is just the food out there. But someplace where I can be out, remote, hike, fish. So I'm imagining a front porch with a rocking chair. I can read, and then there's a mountain stream that runs right by the front of the cabin, and I can go out there and fish the stream. And so, yeah, mine would be pretty remote.
But you do it for
not
3
a
months.
specific location.
You'd actually be really happy.
I think
for
I
3
could do
months,
it for 3 months.
Yeah, I think that's true.
It'd be nice if there's places that you could venture
Yeah.
to from there.
Uh-huh.
But boy, I could spend the majority of it just kind of out there and quiet.
Yeah, you'd love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to have some type of mountains. I need to see some snow. I don't know, Alaska, Canada, somewhere through there. I've been looking into Banff a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
that'd be awesome. I would need a bookstore. You gotta have a bookstore.
Yep.
And you get, like a grocery, but then like a couple like mom and pop restaurant spots. And then that's it. I'll see you in 3 months.
Yep.
You just need a good PB&J. You'd be set.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Grilled cheese?
Yeah. Grilled cheese. You'd
Grilled
step
cheese
it up with
is
some
pretty
grilled
solid.
cheese. Yeah.
Okay, Sissy, share about your sabbatical
Yeah.
for IBCers.
So I go on sabbatical starting Monday, and I'll be back in July. And the way I've thought about my sabbatical is I have what I'm calling 4 hopes for my sabbatical. And so it's rest, delight, reinvigoration for ministry, and then worship. And so around rest, just physical, emotional, mental rest, and opportunity to disconnect from ministry. And we talked a little bit about just the opportunity to step away from ministry. And it's not about my doing for Jesus. It's just about my being with Jesus. So it's an opportunity to slow down and just be with Jesus. And so that kind of rest. Secondly, delight. And for me, that means extended time with family and friends, just connecting with family and friends and travel. And so I'll be in Santa Fe for a little bit for a personal retreat, and then I'll be in Italy for 12 days and back and forth a little bit to New Jersey and some other places where I just get to be with people I love, and in Italy just enjoying a different culture and good food and good drink. And so that's so much fun for me. I love traveling. I love getting to see new places. So that's a lot around delight. But then even just being able to I don't know how I'm going to feel, but I feel like if I can wake up on a Monday morning and be like, you know what, I don't have to do anything. I can just go for a run, or I can just go ride my bike. That to me is a form of delight. So I'm really excited about that. And then reinvigoration for ministry. I'm trying to be really intentional, both on the front end and the back end, and then, obviously throughout, to just spend time thinking about asking the Lord to shape my desires for this next season of ministry. So what does that look like? To be able to come back in July with just a fresh sense of purpose and passion for the work that God has for me. I'm really excited for this next season, and just asking God to just give me that sense of clarity for what do you have for me in this next season as I serve here at IBC. And then fourthly is worship. And I think that's just really central to my sabbatical of this extended time, whether that means I get time to be in scripture and prayer, that I'm not rushing off to work or some other thing that I have to do, but I can just sit with the Lord. And that's certainly worship. But then there are opportunities to worship when taking a walk in nature, or even in traveling and seeing the beauty of God's creation and being with friends. And so I am just so really looking forward to having this extended time I think there's part of that for me that is going to be healing, and that is going to be a form of encouragement for, God has been so good to me, and to look back and to have gratitude, and then to look forward with excitement for what's next.
So good.
So
yeah.
what? I was going to make a few jokes.
Of course you were.
Well, we'll be in Europe.
We're not going to be in Europe at the same time.
We
Europe is very big.
We could hang out.
No, we're not going to hang out. I will not see you until July, Isaac.
Also, so you're coming back to go to youth camp, right?
I am coming back the first week. It is youth camp.
Okay, that's why I thought you lined it up that way. To see as soon as you get back, we'll see you at youth camp. Sissy, obviously, I mean, it's the biggest understatement ever to say we'll miss you, but we'll wait for you, and we'll be ready.
Save up some good topics.
That's
So
right.
yeah,
Oh yeah, and we got to get all the stories when you get
all
back,
the
so
stories. Yeah, there'll be
You
some
better
stories.
you
yeah.
better be holding them for the
Yeah.
formed.
No, I'll miss everybody here.
For the. Are you being sarcastic?
No, I of course will miss everybody here. I really am. I don't know what I'm going to do without you guys. Seeing you every day.
Okay, well, you have one day left. This is coming out on Thursday. You have today to reach out to Sissy. Maybe.
I will be here Sunday.
Okay,
here.
you have until Sunday.
Yeah.
To reach out to Sissy, and then she'll never see you again for 3 months. But we'll be back in 2 weeks for Formed.